Okay, now that Cassie has reprimanded Dave, I'll call the meeting to order. There, motion to accept the minutes. Got a motion by Jim, second by Darrell. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Coroner, you're up. And I can't imagine that kids want to shadow a coroner, but tell us about that.
I know.
I really couldn't wait to see this, to be part of this.
Every year at BOCES, I do a presentation for the criminal justice program. And it's about the history of the coroner system and about medical death investigation. So I got a call about a week after that from the instructor that says, we've got 3 girls that want to shadow you. I said, boy, it's kind of tough. I can't very always take them on a death call. That's just not something I can do. And he said, well, try to come up with an agenda. Have them shadow you for half a day. First of all, I want to get permission to do that. I'm a little uncomfortable because I got kids. I'm not going to transport kids. He tells me they have their own vehicle and they will go wherever I want to go as far as an agenda. So my agenda was thinking about something in our office where they can actually see a death investigation form. We do online death certificates. We kind of talk a little bit more about the job and death investigation. A local funeral home is willing to give them a tour of the funeral home afterwards and the prep room, and as long as there's nobody in there, and explain that process. And then we would follow up at Let's Falls Hospital ward, as long as there's no guests, and we would have a tour of the morgue. Dr. Sicknick would talk to them about forensic pathology. We would show them the tox instrument. We would let them show them how we do tox. Let them maybe practice with one of those, and then end up at the lab and how slides are done and processed. That's kind of what I'm thinking about. Before I moved any further with him, I wanted to make sure I had the support and approval of safety.
I'll just make a comment. I can understand it's 3 girls because my daughter went into forensics in college. So I said, what do you want to do that for? But she changed there midway through college. I think that we have to have written permission slips from the parents that these kids can make these travels and what the itinerary is, so that we don't want them to have a car accident.
Well, I don't either. And I asked about transportation. He said they would not provide that, but they would provide their own. I said, well, first of all, I don't have a company car, but I'm not gonna transport anybody in a personal vehicle. I spent 32 years in education and 20 as a principal. I certainly understand, the legality of.
Well, I'll make the motion to allow the career day for discussion. Second.
You have a second.
So on the discussion part though, I think you've got some legal language that would protect the county and them from liability, right? So that permission form would also be, have to include that language in it. So
You said that.
yeah, there's some basic stuff that protects the. That's what Jay was saying.
Dan, did you have a question?
I come in late, so my only question, is there any cost to the county?
No.
So there's no additional cost?
No expense.
I understand Jay's concern about having having somebody enter into this field. It's unusual in some degree, but I also encourage it because at a minimum, they can make an informed decision as to what kind of career path they want to choose. Maybe that they'll make a decision earlier as opposed to later. Jay's.
It's a necessary thing, some of the stuff you're gonna show them, because, lots of times it's homicides and how this is handled is really important.
I will say that on the field of funeral director is now increasing. There are more and more women entering the field of funeral directing than in the past. And there are a few more forensic pathologists that have gone that route that are female, but it's such a long road to become a forensic pathologist. It's 14 years of college. Just different residents.
That's why she got out.
Each year in college, I can tell you that one of our fastest growing majors is forensic science.
It is.
So it's very natural that students would be interested.
Any more comments? All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
So do I send the information to Dan or to you when I?
Dan.
Yeah, okay.
You communicate with you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Recording in progress.
Yes, sir. Good, too.
I gotta leave the meeting.
Echo. Okay.
I had on the agenda SBO contracts with schools. And I currently we have, 6. So we're waiting on Fort Edward, Salem, and Fort Anne to actually sign their contracts, but the other 6 have signed their contracts, so if it's all right with the board, I would say that I would, bring this to, or ask for resolutions on the ones that are signed, and then, as they come in, kind of thing, go with those. I'm sure they're just waiting to do their budgets.
Salem's budget issue.
Yeah. But we do have the rates locked in, so.
That's usually how we go.
Okay.
We have motions or a second?
I'll second.
Second, you know,
And I can forward those.
any more questions, discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, aye.
And thank you again for allowing us to do the SBO program in the first place. It's one of the best things that we've ever done. All the schools are very happy and pleased with it. And we get to interact with the kids in a positive manner. I do have some things that aren't on the agenda, of course. I did meet with a few members of the board just related to our nursing staff within the jail. The county employs the nurses in the jail. They're in a staffing pattern. Historically, it's been an issue to try to fill vacancies with nurses in the jail. We have one supervising RN that's on call. There was a question whether she was gonna stay with us or not. There now still, but it did get me thinking about contracting with someone for nursing services and not have them be county employees. So we're one of the few jails in the state that employs their own nurses. Most jails contract with private companies. And I know adjoining counties pay probably about at least twice as much, almost 3 times as much as we do for our health care of people that are incarcerated, whether it be nursing staff or all the things with the health related fields. Also, not only is it difficult to fill those spots when they become vacant, but we have the oversight that we have is the supervising RN. There's no one really over that position within the correctional facility that, in my opinion, be the correct supervisor for that spot. In other words, it's all uniform staff or other related divisions within the corrections. So it's something I've been looking at doing for a long time. It's been price prohibitive in the past, but I did get a quote recently from the Eden Center, who also provides our medical and our BHU services within the jail. So This would be helpful in the sense that it would all be under one company that would provide all the medical services, including medical, behavioral health, and the nursing staff. Prior to that, we had separate contracts with Glens Falls Hospital and Hudson Headwaters for two medical and BHU. And then, as I stated, the nurses are county employees. I've met with personnel and discussed this, how this would work. There are no preclusions from doing this as far as the state civil service goes. So it is an option that I'd like to explore. There is a price difference. It's approximately $70,000. I broke it down and quite honestly, been so busy since our last meeting. Like, I don't have an exact figure, but it's in the $70,000 range. I feel that I do within my budget, within the 0.1s possibly alone, have a breakage there that would cover this. So I don't think it would be a big negative budget impact. In fact, I think it might be a non-factor as far as the budget goes. So we do have a contract proposal from Eden, in meeting with the different entities such as the county attorney, suggested that we make it a 1-year contract with the option to renew. Gives both sides the ability to, we're not happy, they're not happy or whatever. But it is something that I'd like to go forward with this year. And that's about it.
Questions?
But do we have nurses employed under the supervisory RN?
Yeah.
What would happen to their positions?
So they, according to the Eden, they would be offered positions within Eden. So it doesn't appear at this time anyways that anyone lose their job. They would be picked up by Eden.
But they could lose their benefit.
They would lose their county benefits, yes.
Dan,
Jeff, when you said 70,000, was that 70,000 more than what you're paying in your 0.1s now?
Well, just, I use 0.1s for an example, but
Well, no,
within the
I'm
total
saying-
budget, I think there's enough breakage because of vacancies. And
That's not my question. My question is, the cost of this is 70,000 more than what you're paying now.
approximately, yes.
Okay, that's all I'm trying to. And did you factor in legacy costs? Because that actually would be a little savings for you.
Well, there's also, no, but there's also a question about liability. If they no longer became county employees, I believe that there would be a liability decrease from Nymer,
Really?
I would assume. I mean,
How can you fill me in? Because I don't know. What is your staff over there as far as for nursing? Is it, you got a supervising nurse? You said?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Full-time? She is.
Since I've been there, we've never, yes, the supervising nurse is full time.
And the other ones are,
So we have LPNs. There's only one LPN that's full-time. That's vacant. And since I've been there, we've never been fully staffed. That's part of the issue. So we're trying to get, there's some people that work.
so on
A lot
top of
more
the
hours.
70,000, you will be full staff what you need.
Yeah, actually the staffing would be more than what we've had in the past. So,
How many current employees are now?
6 part-time and full-time.
No,
And there's-
filled vacancies.
There are, there are 12 total staff, county staff.
For nursing.
positions. Yeah. Yeah, and that includes, LPNs full-time, RNs part-time. And I did budget for those vacant spots.
Are they unionized?
How many inmates total do we have right now?
Last check, 90 something.
Sheriff, I guess my question is, so is that Eden company, is that the same that runs the nursing homes?
I don't believe so.
I only asked that question because all you hear in the news is how they came to enough staffing for their own facility.
Yeah, I don't
So
think
if
it
it
is.
was, I didn't know how they could, find nurses to cover us here.
Yeah, I don't believe that it is.
Okay.
It's not that, it's Eden Care. I might
Eden
have
Care?
misspoke. Yeah, that's something, so.
No, I just made the assumption, but I want to clarify it, that's all.
Oh, no problem.
So,
Sheriff, do they, probably now you have like on call, when they do on call?
Yeah, the current, supervising RN is paid on call. She's the only one.
And Eden does that too?
Yes, they would do.
Sure, I have a question.
Sure.
Are these numbers of staff mandated by the state, or do we have discretion in how many?
No, not with the nursing staff. It's not mandated. Although, I say that, the commission, and I think they're coming, end of next month. They come annually and review, staff within the jail, both uniform staff, correctional staff, kitchen staff. They look at the whole jail. They're there for 3 days. And they try to pick apart everything they can.
Sure.
And, one of the things they do look at is what's being provided medically to incarcerated people. So, it is an important, very important part of it.
So on a full-time basis, do we have 2+ or maybe even 3 premise at a time for 99 inmates?
Yeah, I think there's, at the most 3 at a time.
Always, maybe 3
Yeah,
for under 100 inmates.
yes. Yeah, and they do the medical passes, medications, that kind of stuff. That's why we contract also with Eden Care for the medical part, where they bring PAs in 3 times a week, and they meet with inmates. They schedule times when if they're having some type of medical issue. We have a dentist, for instance, that we contract with, and then so that'll be the only one that's not medical related, that's not being provided by Eden Care. So is the dentist, and that's a good deal that we have with him as well. A lot of jails are paying a lot more than what we're paying.
what's the committee's pleasure?
Motion to move forward.
Dan, would this go to finance or personnel or both?
Both.
Or your motion is?
Well, it's a
I
contract.
think we probably have to move the personnel first, right?
We gotta see if we're gonna pay for it, I think, but they're both meet the same day, so we
Yeah.
can get it figured.
Motion to, this to finance and personnel.
A motion to second. Are there any more questions?
You got one, Jay.
Yep.
Sheriff, have you talked to the nurses over there about this?
Yes,
What's
Well,
their, how do they receive it?
Eden actually spoke to it. Well, they're aware of this, and I actually talked to my secretary right before I came over, and I said, just gonna wait until after this meeting first to see how this goes, before
I just didn't know how they were feeling about maybe transitioning out of the county to private
yeah, I'm not sure.
for employment.
Yeah.
Dan,
Jeff, I'm trying to understand what you said and sort it out, right? You have 6 right now, and you have 6 openings, is that what you said in your staff?
Yes,
And for 70,000 more, are you getting then all 12 openings filled? Or are you just, for 70,000 more, you're replacing the 6? In which case, will it function with 6, or will there be 12? I guess I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
A lot of things, the contract probably wouldn't work that way. The contract would be for a service. It'd be for a service to have this many people on site.
How many?
so it is broken down in the contract.
Yeah,
If you'd like, I could read it to you. It's for a head RN, full-time on call, 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday, 7 AM to 3 PM. full-time RN evenings, which we currently don't have because we can't fill it. That's one of the issues. And that's 37 and a half hours, 2:30 to 10. But and I understand your question, but the important thing to remember is this is part of the big issue is planning, filling shifts, all the stuff that goes on that we're responsible for, that goes away. Part-time RN weekend days, 16 hours, Saturday and Sunday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Full-time LPNs, 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Full-time LPN evenings, 37 and a half hours, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. to 10. Part-time LPN weekend days, 16 hours, Saturday, Sunday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Part-time LPN weekend evenings, 14 hours a week, Saturday, Sunday, 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. Float RN, which we don't have currently, 8 hours a week to cover sick vacation coverage. Float LPN, 6 hours a week. I asked for those just so we know. And yeah, so that's what they're proposing for that figure, which if you line it up against what we have, it's more coverage.
Thank you.
But it's the sheriff defining requirement, the company comes back with a proposal on how to. We should be paying just a set amount for covering the medical.
Well, he just provided the information I was interested in, which was what coverage are we getting, is it more or less, or the same?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Aye. Got one nay. Sheriff, would you make sure on those figures when we have the finance meeting there?
Yeah. What I was gonna do is make a comparison between what we have
That
now.
would be great. Next one discussion.
Yeah, well, it's the same company. So there is a more opioid funding available for our county and for Warren County as well. But there's certain criteria like we do the last time this round of funding came around. And one of the things that we have identified as a need is a social worker position within our office. So rather than, first we looked at how much money is in this grant, which is $175,000 over a 3-year period. What we could get for that, basically, if it was a county employee, and it didn't seem like that was the best way to go. So in talking with Eden on this project with the nurses, I asked if they had licensed social workers or a whole bunch of different acronym or titles after a person's name that allows them to do the things that we want to do. But basically, when we go to somebody who's in crisis, we're sending uniformed guys, right, to handle it with tasers and weapons. And we don't have the ability to have someone that has the credentials to be able to maybe diffuse or de-escalate the situation a little bit better than what we do. We would never send them alone, but it would be a benefit to our office if we had people like that were available, that were professional and able to help not only at the scene, but then with follow-up, make sure that this person is getting the services that they require. And you could also shift that to the jail. And you could also include cases where we have overdoses, and they could go back and follow up. Say if it was a family, they would be able to go and follow up with that family to make sure that they're getting the needs that they need met. And then one thing I didn't even think of is very unfortunate, another fatality accident over the weekend. I happened to be reviewing a body camera from that, and I saw a witness that looked like a rugged guy who happened to witness the accident, and he was basically in tears talking to our deputy. And it got me thinking about that too, like that's something where we could reach out to that person afterwards. Because otherwise, the deputies just go and call, and nobody ever has the opportunity, for instance, to check on that person. So I thought that funding would be, a good choice for that funding would be the social worker type position. And I don't have the exact titles that it gave.
Will the funding cover the 3 years of the?
Well, I think what we talked about was that we would do a 1-year contract with the option to, the same thing with the, a 1-year contract with the option to renew, if the funding is there. If it turned out to be as beneficial as I think it is, and there is no funding after 2.5 years, whatever that works out to, money-wise, then I probably would come back to you all and say, hey, this is really, it's very helpful. I'd like to make this a permanent position. But again, it wouldn't be a county employee, it's contract also.
Yeah, I was gonna say, my only question is, I think one person can handle that workload. There's a lot of workload
Well,
there.
they have people on staff, and also it's not a Monday through Friday in my mind anyway. This is, and I have to say, I apologize for this funding idea. We had several different ideas. Other ones included more staff, within the office, and we kind of narrowed it down to this kind of is what we need the most out of this one. We have to have it to Rob York by Friday. So what I'm basically looking for is permission to apply for this grant for this purpose.
Is this something then that, okay, you got a situation, you call Eden and say, who's available? Can we grab them on the way, or how do you foresee it working?
Yeah, I think that, I think we would set a schedule, and it might be 3 days a week. But included in that is an on-call sort of situation as well, where if it's something that's happening during the day, that's easy for them probably. If it's something after hours, it might be a case where we would have to set up an appointment, the following day for a person or whatever. But I can tell you that numerous times a week, unfortunately, we come across situations where our deputies are put in positions that they're dealing with mental health crises. They're dealing a lot. They're dealing with different kinds of family issues that we can't resolve as law enforcement officers. And I know there was a big push years ago that some states didn't think that cops should go to these calls at all. But I think that's a little too far. But I certainly agree that the way that things are in this world today, that we're dealing with more and more people that are having issues, whether it be mental issues or similar, where we don't want to have to be using force.
Two things. You mentioned 3 days. Is that, you mean 24 hours and then at 24 hours a week on call?
Yeah, I
Or
just threw that
3
out
days
there.
they're showing up, then on call the rest of the time.
Yeah, I just threw that out there. I think that, we're gonna look at what I don't have a cost from them yet, what the figure is, so I don't know how long this would last, the funding. So we would try to tailor it to make it last as long as we could, and then have it be either an on-call or something similar, to, in the meantime, between those three.
Okay, another one. What, in these circumstances where the deputies can't or have a hard time handling them, and they're the people that the deputies are talking to, what would give the social worker the credentials to do that job? Where would they fall in? Who would make the decision that it's a social worker's job to come to an automobile accident?
Well, I
The
don't-
sheriff at the accident or what?
No, and I just use that example as that they're like currently that person that I was mentioning in that question on video. There is nothing for us to be able to reach out to that person. Just if you watch the video, you know what I'm saying. To say, hey, are you okay? You're all right. 3 days later, because we just go on to the next crime, go on to the next fall, you know, so that this person will be able to follow up with people that are having, whatever the situation is, some type of crisis moment or emotional or whatever, that we don't handle as law enforcement officers. So it's not,
Zoom.
Sheriff, with the change possibly in mental health, I think you're ahead of the curve, thank you, okay? So, you know, right now, the way the law says is that you can't be committed unless you're a threat to yourself or others. Potentially, what the next thing could be, they can, that we're having a really hard time, and be committed, can be involuntarily committed.
yes.
And so with that in mind, a social worker could do that if they felt the need, that they will be,
Involuntarily.
it's involuntary.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a mental health 911 what we call them, and we would still handle that, but that position would give, I'm sorry.
Would it go over to the social worker, is that just?
Well, I think, you know, in that kind of case, like, for instance, like, we have nobody that could help with the family of that person, you know? And generally, that's how the call comes in. It's a family member has been threatened by someone who's in crisis, and then we go there, we bring that person to BHU, they get held there. But then, you know, who follows up with the family after that, this guy gets out or whatever? And that's the thing that's difficult for us, because then they're just going from call to crime to crime. You know, so
Sheriff, is there anybody in social services that has the credentials? And then if you call them out, you can just reimburse social services with the money?
well, there are people that there are different entities out there in addition to social service. I can't speak for.
I'm just trying to keep, you know.
Yeah, I can't speak
utilize the
for
money
that,
ourselves.
but I can tell you there's like mobile crisis is available to us, but that's one of the few entities that are doing what we're looking for this to do. And I'm not saying that whether it works well or it doesn't work well, but I'm saying that we have a need in addition to that. And I don't, you know, as far as
A couple of things. Sue, I believe the social worker could facilitate, but it has to be two doctors beside somebody, and they call it a 2PC. And I think that this is a great idea, Sheriff. Really, that's a need we have right now. My only question is, would that person also do like transitional services for guys that are getting ready to get out, and those kind of things? Help people land on their feet.
I think we work pretty well with alternative sentencing right now with that, you know, but I mean, they could certainly assist, you know, they could assist. And that's why I said, you know, I think there's a nexus with the jail and the road both. And
Charles?
A little backup general question. This grant is available through the opioid settlement
Yes.
funding. And how did it get determined what branch of our county is going to be applying for this grant? Is it only available for law enforcement?
no,
So is this the only amount Washington County can get? Would it be considered possible for social services?
I'm not sure on that, but I think so. I think they would.
Rob York's office.
Yeah, yeah.
It came from Rob York.
Yeah, it's the same.
Mental health, and then he reaches out to the groups that are involved, so I don't know whether he is.
Yeah, I think the last round of funding, there was maybe 4 to 5 different county entities that were involved with the funding. And it's not limited, like it's $175,000 per project. So there's more than $175,000 for our town. Yeah, so it's you know, this is just, we had several ideas. This is kind of the one we settled on. We thought was best for our office.
Jim, I keep passing over to you.
Sheriff, more specifically, a scenario that you described, someone's in crisis and, you know, your men go there, but it would be nice for a social worker to hopefully calm it down. That could happen day or night. Would, in contracting, would you be able to get someone there at any time?
Yeah, that's what we discussed, and, I really haven't ironed out yet, so I'll have more information on that for sure by the time. You know, this, again, this is like, that's a great question, because I asked them that myself, and I think if it's not an emergency situation, like I said, obviously, if we had the ability to, we would set something up where the person would go visit that family the next day during business. But if not, there's probably gonna be times when we need.
All we're really asking right now is permission to apply for the grant. Once you, if, I'm assuming that he got the grant, then all this other stuff, we can talk about it.
I'll make that motion, please.
I'll second
We
it.
have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of permission to apply for this grant? say
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I never got the information back, so.
Okay, any other questions for the sheriff?
Do you have CIU staff?
That might be an acronym, that's not.
Crisis intervention hostage negotiators.
Oh, yes, yeah, we have people trained in, hostage. And critical incident, there's some a lot more than others, but this day and age, everybody gets.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Isn't it?
No.
I was gonna come up and say I've got my annual report.
I looked at that, and oh my God, I don't know all of that.
Yeah, I didn't have time to read through that this morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
First off, we were advised from New York State that we received that there's a new communications grant that we will be a recipient of. And that's for the next Gen 911, so the next phase of statewide update to 911. And there's other parts within the operation that we can use for that. That's gonna be $1.5 million. So that is an excellent shot in our arm right now, because we're in the process of upgrading the 911 system. We were gonna use the regular communications grant, so that is
Good.
a wonderful opportunity there.
Glenn, does that mean that there's a possibility that we can do some more with the regular communication?
Yes,
Oh,
it'll go back towards regular radio communications as opposed to the 911 system. Staff wise, we have a pending retirement for a deputy fire coordinator. So we'd like to go ahead and post those and start
I'll
that
make that
process.
motion.
With the personnel?
Yep.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And as we're talking about staff, I'd just like to publicly again give my appreciation to our staff, because over the past couple of weeks, they've had several high-intensity calls at the same time throughout the county. Handled them professionally. We are still one full-time position down. We do have a trainee right now, but we are working on filling that position. And the last is the domestic terrorism plan. We had a bare bones plan that met the requirements for the state last year. We had updated those requirements. We utilized our master service agreement with Tetra Tech and redid our plan, meeting the new requirements from the state. The requirement is that that is posted or provided to the state prior to June 4th. It was sent out electronically this morning as well. Like that the full board for approval.
I'll second. Motion and second. Any questions? Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That it?
Oh, you were scary with that big stack of paper.
Yeah. Didn't want to be standing between you and lunch.
Dan?
We don't have lunch. We don't eat lunch.
Oh, that's the
Speak for yourself.
I like lunch, so.
Less around.
Yeah.
You do. We're good eater. Very healthy.
You pick my diet? No. Jeez.
Mr. Hogan's very healthy, so not that healthy. Every year we do our travel plan, part of the budget. We put an anticipated travel plan together that's completely incorrect for you. Every year. We're gonna continue to do that. But because the budget process starts so early, nobody knows where they're actually going the next year. So we put where we think we might go, and then we come and amend it. So that's what I'm doing today. We have, for my department, when you have an anticipated vacancy, you can get into Albany for new training. If you are lucky and you are required by law to complete your peace officer training within the calendar year of hire and your fundamentals of probation practice, about 9 weeks of training. Some of it we do locally. About 7 weeks of it, we're without, no questions asked, you're at least an hour away. We're closed out of Albany a lot based on date of hire. And it wouldn't be a problem if Orange County and some of the other counties would stay out of Albany. And they would go to their regional trainings in Westchester or Long Island or wherever, but they want to go to the first one available. So they take up Albany spots and they bump us. It puts us in a precarious position because an employee might not get into the next round of the Albany. And then you're past the year, you have to call DCJS or write a letter, request a waiver for somebody's peace officer status or whatever. That means they don't go into the field. They're doing work or work, things like that until they have their firearms and are fully certified. So we are sending somebody out of the area. We did it last year also. If you beg enough, somebody will give you the training for free, but you have to pay for their hotel, which is a lot of money for weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. And that's what I'm here for today. New employee, we were going to send some people to several staff members to a probation officers association training that was multiple days, and they would get a series of trainings throughout the day, but new employee training is more important for our department. So our travel plan would be amended to have this officer go to Suffolk County to be there for 3 weeks and over the summer. We submitted it to the county administrator and it should be part of the packet. My annual summer conference for probation administrators, it's always at a different location. I put it in the location last year of Oswego because it was there 3 years in a row, hoping to be there, and they changed it to Saranac Lake, so I'm switching it. That's paid for by my association. I just have to drive there. The hotel and the conference is there. It's actually a good training because you get a lot of people that come to you instead of you having to go to them. So there's a lot of people in one location over a 3-day period. A lot of times conferences are nonsense, but this one's it's actual training, so it's pretty good. So my request is to amend the travel plan, and if there's any questions I can answer.
I assume we're over the travel plan budget. How much would be over?
We're over what I proposed. We're not over my budgeted amount that I asked for because training, if I have one or two,
Build it in.
yeah, I build it in just in case. So we're not over my budget amount, we're over what I told you we would go because it was completely different training last year. So what was in my travel plan is different. What's in my budget is now.
I'll move.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. Any more questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Just got a recent notification that I'll be losing an employee beginning of June. So I did send it to Danielle for personnel. So I'm assuming she'll be bringing it up for the backfill, but I also wanted to bring it to you just so you know. I only have about 3 people take my exam. It used to be about 50. So that might be coming up again, my conversation, just so you guys know where we're at.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan?
That's it.
Go get your pizza, Dan.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Is there any other?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Keep walking.
When Dave's phone went off, 72 hours, is it installing your birdhouses now? Oh, sounds like you did.
Anybody have anything else to bring for the committee?
I do, John, if you want to say. So.
Yep.
I've been talking to John about, I brought this up in the past about how I believe Washington County should be charging for fire inspections that are mandated by the state. Am I correct when I say that, John?
Yep.
So the state of New York mandates that we inspect commercial businesses.
Yeah.
Apartments with more than 3 units and places of
3 or
assembly.
more.
Yep. 3 times, once every 3 years. Did I have all that correct?
Residential is, yes, once every 3 years.
Okay. We in Kingsbury charge for these fire inspections, and it does provide us with a revenue source to offset the cost of having the person be hired to conduct those fire inspections. I actually believe we should be doing it at the county level, particularly in light of the fact that I've heard twice now, our tax rate is going to be 15 to 20%. We need to look at areas of revenue that are not utilizing fund expenses for people who have no business paying that fee. So I wanted to bring it up and have that discussion again, to see if there's any flavor to start charging for fire inspections in Washington County.
Yes, there is a flavor.
Yeah. What would the recommended cost per inspection?
There's a wide variety of neighboring prices, but 75 is.
And that's for, 75, but it's every 3 years, so.
Assemblies are every year. There are some that are every year. Ones are every 3 years.
But to your point, generally speaking, right, how long would it take an inspector on average roughly? I know it depends on the structure to go and do an inspection.
Actually, in the field inspection might take an hour or two, if that long. You know, if it's like an assembly, say, a restaurant or something. Probably like an hour, hour and a half.
75 sounds reasonable. Yeah, 2 hours.
But there is also, in regards to the cost of what we're already doing, there's a lot of work that has to happen before you even get there to do the inspection. You've gotta reach out, set it up, multiple phone calls. So it's not just that hour, hour and a half that you have to invest in it. So it's.
So you're talking me something a little more than that.
Yeah, we charge for follow-ups too. So if they go to the site and they don't pass, I guess that'd be the way I would describe it. You know, we have to go back. I think we charge $25, $40, 40. Thank you. I know it's a lot better.
I talked to Tom.
Go ahead,
Is
Scott.
anybody around us charging $100? I don't mean to sound greedy, but
I did.
some people do it by square footage, right?
Yeah, there's all kinds of different ways out there. Glens Hall. They charge $200 for somebody. A lot of places do it by the square footage. Some are lower, some are higher. It's where you want to fall in there.
So I guess what I'd like to make a motion that we ask John, if you could come up with a basis or a process you would feel comfortable with, that we can, for accounting purposes, present it to our next public safety meeting and go from there.
I don't think you're that at all, Scott, at all. Question, I think I know the answer. Churches charge.
You guys.
Is it churches or nonprofit?
You guys, I guess that's what the answer is.
Churches spread out these days?
Nate? John, would you be able to do this with your existing staffing pattern without, hiring anybody additional for this purpose?
We're currently not doing a very good job at it, to be straight up. And I'm working on basically redesigning the process. We do have 2 people now that are designated fire inspectors. But once everything is set up, working the way that I'm picturing it working. Yes, I believe.
More discussion.
I would just recommend maybe in your proposal, put in, different ways of charging as others have done it.
Combinations.
And will schools be charged? If they're big and they should be charged.
They already are. We already do, school inspections. They're not required to go through us. They can have third party do it, but there are schools that repeatedly come back to us. And what I would like to do, what I'm planning on doing at some point here is, last year I brought some of the fees to the table to increase them. I would like to do that. Coming up with some of the other fees, and one of those would be the school inspections.
We believe we had a motion and a second for you to go ahead and look into this and prepare.
And if I can say something real quick, Dave O'Brien. Of the 148 assemblies that we have at the moment, 53 of them were churches.
It seems springing up on the corner all the time.
Any other questions for John? I'll go ahead.
Do we charge churches now?
We don't charge
We don't
anybody.
charge
We
anybody.
don't charge any.
Well,
Except
the school.
Okay.
John?
A lot of the churches that are springing up are using rented buildings. Would that be?
The owners for that, we charge still in my mind.
Any other questions?
The owners are the ones making the money.
Maybe just an interesting side note, I believe if we charge schools, schools are heavily state subsidized, so we're not paying it all out of the county. In other words, like Whitehall is 60% state. Bolton is 90% local, 10% state. So when we increase the revenue for the school, we're getting more from the state.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh. Any more others?
Thanks, Dave.
Hearing no others? Adjourned. Oh, wait a minute.